Flipping it up and out. Bogues! A recent block by Bogut.
Good recovery by Andrew Bogut.
Let's get rogue.
Welcome to Rogue Bogues. This is the basketball podcast. Myself, Andrew Bogut, and the big fella, Mike Procopio. Pro, what's going on?
Bogues, not much, man. I saw the craziest thing I've seen in 30 years of being in basketball. Today, I was at a showcase camp for high school kids. Some guy puts on like a national camp for top kids in the South and freshman and sophomore. So they have like a top 30 All-Star game. Top 30 All-Star game, last play of the game, guy gets fouled, down one. And in this like format, you shoot one free throw for 2 points. You know, they only shoot one. So the guy's down one with no time on the clock. He's about to shoot his free throw. The winning coach, the coach that's winning, had his daughter on the bench. She's like 3 years old, right? He picks up the daughter, carrying his daughter, like steps on the court like 3 feet. The guy misses the free throw. The referee calls a violation on the coach for being out of the coach's box in an all-star game. So the kid gets another shot at it, hits the shot. The coach loses the game in epic fashion. I thought it was going to be pandemonium. I've never seen shit like that before. It's an all-star game. Nobody cares. Everybody just wants to get the hell out of there. And the fucking coach gets an out of the fucking box.
Was he just trying to be funny, or was he like...
No, he just had his daughter in his hands. She's like 3. You know how that goes. She's a little fidgety. So he just picked her up and he just stepped on the court. He wasn't like, he was in the backcourt. He was on that bench. Oh,
wow.
So it wasn't even on that side. This guy, like behind the ref, and the ref calls it out of the box technical, and the guy loses the game. I've seen some shit before, but that takes the cake in 30 years of, being a basketball.
But the kids take that All-Star game seriously, don't they? For the most part, or not really?
Yeah. It was good, yeah. They had like 5 or 6 high major kids in it. And so it was good. They were taking it pretty serious. But like, I mean, imagine getting a game called, not because like somebody ran on the court that messed up the free throw shooter. It was behind the free throw shooter about 80 feet. It had nothing to do with the play.
Why is the ref even looking back there, though? Like,
I have no idea, man.
That's a question you have, right? Like, why are you even looking back?
Maybe he just watched the Donahue. He listened to the pod last week, and he watched the Donahue fucking Netflix show. I have no idea, but I thought it was some funny shit.
Interesting. There's not a lot of NBA news. It's the honeymoon period still. It's training camp, and like Pro said many times, everyone's in shape, found Jesus, and on their best behavior. But there was one team which was spoken about a lot, probably not so much basketball-wise. It was spoken about this team the last couple of weeks, but the Phoenix Suns. There's some issues, Pro. The fact that usually you're in your honeymoon period the 1st of October, and they're already not, by all reports. I've got huge concerns. I think a lot of people do. Our guy, Mark Spears, I saw some of his comments. He said that this was the worst training camp or media day / training camp he's ever seen since he's covered the league. That's a big statement, a huge statement. For those that aren't familiar, media day, it's your first day before the first day of camp. Everyone's positive generally, even the shitty teams that are like the Spurs would have been positive on media day. They know they're going to be shit, but it's positive. It's a fresh start. We're going to develop young guys. New guys get opportunities. The roses are blooming. So for a team to kind of, the Mark Spears quote, it was like a funeral home. Huge concern there, right? And there were a few other reporters that mentioned the same thing. A guy, Jock Landau's there, he's giving me the politically correct answer of everything's fine, which he has to do as a young fella. We don't want to throw him under the bus, but he didn't give me anything, the bastard. So, look, there's some issues there. They've got, there's the Sava thing, but now that's in the rearview mirror. We can move on. You've got DeAndre Ayton, Monty Williams relationship. Seems like, did you see DeAndre Ayton's press conference at all, Pro, or any of his comments?
It was pretty rough. Oof. Yeah, it was pretty grim.
It was very rough. It was very bland. Yep, I'm happy to be here. Yep, great. Okay. Yep, cool. Is what it is, that kind of style. For those of you who haven't seen it, you can go on YouTube. But Monty Williams obviously saying, look, they asked Monty Williams why he haven't spoken to Aiden. Aiden basically said, I haven't spoken to Coach Williams since the playoffs. Red flag there. Monty Williams spun that into saying, well, I haven't spoken to a lot of my guys. Let them have a break, blah, blah, blah. So there's some turmoil between those two, Monty Williams and DeAndre Aiden. Reportedly, Monty Williams told DeAndre Aiden mid-series or in that game where they got blown out by 1,000, it seemed, that, you know, are you going to quit on the team? Are you quitting on us? So I guess that's a relationship they need to fix. Jay Crowder, a week before training camp, is not going to report because he was told that he's probably going to come off the bench and we're not going to give you an extension. So he's like, I'm out of here. A lot going on in Phoenix. And look, Pro and I just spoke off air. They've still got a good team. They're a really good team on paper. You look at, you know, Chris Paul, obviously you don't need to talk about him. Everyone knows what he brings to the table. Devin Booker. They got good role players like Josh Okogie, Torrey Craig to help balance the team out with some role players. They got, obviously, Jock Landale's there. Damian Lee, they got some shooting. Who else do they have here? Landry Shamet. I like his game. I thought he had a really down year. I think he can be better. Cameron Payne has established himself as a decent backup. DeAndre Aiden, of course. Dario Saric didn't play last season. Very good playmaking four-man that can shoot the three ball. Bismack Biyombo, Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges. You know, they got a great team, but it's, to me, this is alarm bell stuff. I know Monty Williams is supposed to be that culture guy, that glue type coach, but he also in the past reportedly has been hard-nosed, hard-line coach. So I think, you know, that's going to be interesting. But just a team that was on the brink only a season or two ago to this media day, Pro, how do you see it?
Folks, it just goes to show you how fragile an NBA team is. Like, you have Boston, what's going on there. We talked about that last week. But, like, you have teams that are slated to be, you know, favorite to be in the NBA finals or at least conference finals. And you have everything going for you. You have the coach that you want. You have your players. Everybody's healthy. And then you throw a monkey wrench into things, and then it just snowballs. It's crazy. This team won 64 games, won their division by like 13 games last year. And you got everybody back. Everything seems to be fine. And now you get this. It's crazy. And look, I don't know what's going on inside the locker room. I'm not there. But look, Monty Williams is the head coach of their team. Regardless of what happened, how your playoffs ended, how your season ended, you shake it off. You might be mad for a week. You probably said something you shouldn't have said, even though you thought I was going to fire the team up. You know, you have a lot of stuff going on with the contract of Ayton. You know, then you got blown out by Dallas in an epic Game 7, one of the worst in the history of mankind. And now you go the whole year, the whole summer, and Ayton's been working out at your facility all summer, and you don't talk to him. That's a problem. That's a problem. You have to nip that in the butt. Like, you have to go in, like, even if you don't think it, you just say, look, I fucked up. I shouldn't have said what I said. I apologize. You're our cornerstone of our franchise. We're not going to win without you. You know, I let a bad situation get out of hand. I said something I shouldn't have. I embarrassed you in front of the team. I should have never questioned that. But to go the whole year, and Bogues, you know how it is. If you go like a week or two, but then anything past that, it's going to fester and fester and fester. And now you're Ayton, and you just, you know, you're in the middle of something. The only reason why Phoenix signed him is because they didn't want to lose him to Indiana for nothing. And when they had to match the offer sheet. But I think you got to be better than that. You got to talk to the guy, even if you're lying through your teeth. You got to put that stuff aside, because regardless of what's going to happen, you don't know if Ayton's going to be traded. You don't know if you're going to get the package that you want if you want to trade him. And now you go a whole offseason without talking to the guy. You're supposed to be the leader. You're the CEO. You got to be in front of this stuff, and you got to meet with the guy. And now you get the Crowder thing and all this other stuff. It's
Ayton can't be traded for a while, right? I know he can't go back
December 15th.
Yeah, and he can't go back to Indiana for a year. So cross him off the list. Obviously, there's other teams, but yeah, he can't be traded still till mid-season. So what happens between now and then. It's just an ugly, like you said. It's so disappointing for the Phoenix Suns if this is true. I mean, we could be wrong. They could start the season 20-0. But I think this underlying kind of back and forth is not good, and I think it'll eventually. I don't care even if they potentially fix it in the next couple of weeks or month. It's going to be sitting there, bro. As we both know, these things you need an independent but I think if there comes a point where shit gets too hard in the season, it'll rear its ugly head again. If everything goes well, different story. If things, I'm talking about a 5-game losing streak on the road, blah, 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 Aiden gets benched a game, whoever it is, that's when these things can come up again, even though they're supposed to be behind us. And I'm worried for the Suns. I just don't think that they're, in a position to get to where they were. I thought they were so close. I picked them to win last season. I thought they'd make that next step. It just goes to show you, like you said, how hard it is to stay on top, how hard it is to repeat to get to a finals or a conference finals, how hard it is to keep a group together that's so talented that, anyone who's got half a basketball brain would have looked at the Phoenix Suns this season ago and said, shit, they're going to be together another season. Young guys like Booker and Aiden, new coach, another year with the guys. It can only go up from here. Like anyone would think that, and it's such a small thing. One veteran's pissed off in Crowder, and your young big man's pissed off and didn't feel wanted for a bit because he didn't get the extension straight away from his own team, and now bang, and now you got to. You're clutching at straws again to do some kumbaya meetings and some yoga meetings and try to break bread and go bowling and do all that shit and try to build up culture again. But if guys don't want to buy into it, your talent will only get you so far. So it's just, the room for error, man. In pro sports in general, I think it is. If you've got one or two guys that are your main guys that acting like Aiden is now, it can derail your whole season.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, if I'm the coaching staff there, I'm not worrying about my pick and roll coverage. I'm not worrying about my 972 plays we're going to put in. The number one, number two, and number three thing is getting DeAndre Ayton back, like just mentally, at least go forward with it. And because this guy is one of the best centers in the league. He's not a bum. I understand why they didn't give him the extension. And it's their right not to give him the extension last year when they could extend him. Was it right? Was it wrong? Yeah, true. You'd want to extend your rookies, the number one pick in the draft. You want to extend him, early as possible to save face and just to make sure he feels valued and all that. But it's their option to wait another year to do it. But to not talk to the guy, first of all, you force Indiana to force your hand to give him the max extension to match, but then you go the whole year. This guy's a really good player, and I don't know why they treat him like, you treat him like this. Look, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Bridges, all those other guys were on the fucking court too. Crowder, those guys were on the court too in Phoenix when they got their ass kicked. It wasn't Ayton's fault, just as singular to blame everything on him. It's one of those games. Collectively as a unit, as a coach and staff, everything. No one came to play that night. Yeah, look, it sucks, but you have everything going for you. And that's the number one thing. You got to get this thing fixed. And you can't let ego, and pride fuck with you. You got to get this thing fixed. If I'm ownership, well, not ownership anymore, but if I'm front office, I'm saying to Monty, look, this is why we give you the money that you get. You got to repair this. This isn't front office anymore. This is you, and you got to fix this because this is not looking good. And, you still got time. You're talented enough to do what you need to do. There's no clear-cut favorite in the West, but this could fuck your whole season up if it's not nipped. You can't go, another month and a half without, communicating with the guy. But it's fucking NBA, man.
It sure is. Show. Yeah, it is. Hopefully they can get it right and be competitive in the West. But and look, the West isn't as deep as it once was. I think the East is probably much deeper now. So there's still an opportunity for them to to still go second, third round. But that's a big part. Like you said, I'm not worried about their X's and O's. They got enough stars and players and shooters and defenders. They got that's the least of their problems. They need to just have some hold hands meetings around a fire and etch it all out. Hopefully, so we'll watch that space. Hopefully, Jock can get some minutes there as well. So I know he's excited to be playing with Chris Paul and all that kind of stuff. So
well, when he's not serenading Chris Paul in a fucking group chat, it's funny. He group chats fucking Chris Paul, but he doesn't call me back. What the fuck is going on with that?
Well, it's his PG, man. He has to. It's his PG. That's his PG. He has to kind of butter the bread, a little bit. But no, we love Jock, and hopefully, worst comes to worst, the Suns don't have a fantastic year, and he plays into some minutes and helps them get some wins. That's kind of best case for the Australian bias Phoenix Suns. All right, Houston Rockets. There was a kind of a multifaceted trade here. No real huge names, but the Houston Rockets are acquiring center Derek Favors, conditional 26 second round draft pick in an 8-player trade with OKC. It was announced Friday. So who do we have here? We have the Thunder will acquire 2 draft exceptions and save $1 million in salary in a deal that sends Favors, guards Ty Jerome, Theo Maledon, and forward Mo Harkless to the Rockets for David Nwaba, Sterling Brown, Trey Burke, and Marquise Chris. I mean, Marquise Chris is he just goes back and forth from Houston, doesn't he? But basically a salary shedder for both teams, right? And some pick stocks. Yeah,
for Oklahoma City, it's not really picks. I think it's trade exceptions they get. They got a second round pick in the deal, but I think it brought. Obviously this is almost like a lost season for Oklahoma, with their draft pick being hurt for the year. And then they're trying to be competitive, but they're not really trying to win. I think they just tried. I think it brought them below even further below the luxury tax. So they're in a good space financially. And then for Houston, look, they're a young team, good, but no one really made out. In my opinion, no one really made out in this trade. I think it's sort of Mo Harkless goes to Houston. That might have been the best player in the trade, to be honest. So originally Oklahoma City got Mo Harkless from Atlanta, and then they sent him in this trade. So not much going on except a little bit of a salary shed for Oklahoma City.
Yeah, agree. Not like we said earlier, not a lot going on right now. It's kind of the quiet time with the pre-season and guys, staying healthy and just trying to get right for the season. There were some extensions on. One just broke. Tyler Hero, 4 years, $130 million, if you don't mind. Nice little salary bump there. We discussed this at length last season, what Miami would do. Would Tyler leave? There were rumbles about him looking elsewhere. I guess that was to put pressure on Miami, and they've come up with the goods. I think they've probably calculated that to replace a player of his talent, we're probably paying around about the same thing if we get him from another team. And he's young. That's the thing. He's young. He's still got a lot of good years ahead of him, and it still is a lot of money though. When you look at it, they're investing a lot in him. He was kind of alienated last season in the playoffs because he couldn't defend, and he's made some comments about that where he was hurt, he wasn't in full health. I mean, defense isn't his strength, but hopefully it lights a little fire on him where he can just get to an average level where he can't get picked on. But you want to hope that this is not another Duncan Robinson type signing. I don't think it is. I think Tyler Hero is very, very talented, especially scoring, and can get his own shot up. But he's going to have to lift his defensive kind of prowess a little bit to make sure he can play that 30, 35 minutes in a playoff series, bro.
Yeah, let's be honest, Bogues. Guys, after their first contract, you're either a good defender or you're not. And he's not a great defender, but he's more dynamic offensively than Robinson. Robinson's one of the premier three-point shooters in the league, just can't guard anybody, and he can't really put the ball on the floor past one dribble on handoffs and things like that. Hero could get a shot. He averaged, 20 and 5 last year. And, he's a bucket getter. He could get that. Offense sells in this league individually, obviously, and they need it. Their lineup, look, they're tough and they play good D, but they don't really have scorers. I don't know how many more years Jimmy Butler could carry you. He's 32 years old. Going forward, you need those young guns coming up. And yeah, look, it's hard to acquire a guy like Tyler Hero. love him or hate him, the guy could fill it up. And they need that going forward, especially if they're going to move Jimmy, in the next couple of years, when trying to get the most out of him before they move him on. They're going to need some players. So people say this contract's a little high. I don't know. I think it's to acquire your own players, because if you don't want to lose them, you don't want to get into that. If you have, he's your guy. He comes off the bench. He could really score. Sometimes you're going to have to overpay for that. But as we've seen in the last couple of years, no contract is untradeable. So, if they're getting some buyer's remorse in the next year or two, they could definitely move him. But, I think that they're going to need this going forward. So, I think it's a decent signing for them.
Yeah, it is. Like I said, what else are you going to do with the money? That's the thing. So, Steven Adams, another 2 years added to his contract, 2 more years at $25 million. Pretty fair deal, I think. $12.5 million a year. It takes him to $43 million over 3 years because of his previous deal that he brought over from, I think that was with OKC that carried over. Look, he was basically benched in the playoffs late when they went small ball. I couldn't play him against Golden State. I think that's more the fact that you were playing Golden State than anything else. But I think he's a good, solid veteran leader now for him. Physical guy. They love him in the locker room. Does the little things. He's happy to play 20 minutes, hit people, grab rebounds, dive on loose balls. And that's probably about where the market is for role-playing big men now. It's 10 to 15 million max for a role-playing big man, and I think it's a pretty good deal for them.
Yeah, I mean, he bounced around a little bit, from New Orleans to Memphis. And, I think he's solid. I think he's a solid player. I think he's good. I think it's good for them. He fits in anywhere. Like, the guy's like the best teammate of all time. Guy plays hard. I think it's a solid signing for them. I agree with you. The money is basically where, role-playing bigs, that's sort of where they go. Guy averaged 7 and 10 last year, but he doesn't need the ball. He just plays hard. He rebounds. I think it's a good solid signing for them.
Agree with that one. Larry Nance, 2 years, $21.6 million with an extension for him. CJ McCollum was banging that drum. Really wanted him around. I think he's solid. I think he showed a few times in the playoffs last season with a few of those those 8-7-7-6 stat lines. Like. He's one of those. He's kind of, to an extent, a Kirilenko type, where he'll fill a stat sheet up without making it look crazy. Like, he's not going double digits, but he's going to have 2 or 3 steals, 2 or 3 blocks, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. Like, he does a lot of different things for him, and I think they can play him at the 5 for stretches, play him at the 4. Just a really, really good role player. So for $10 million a year, decent role player. I like the signing for them. I like, he's a great locker room guy. Guys love him. I was with him in LA. Fun guy to be around. And I think they, they need to start just building some stability there in New Orleans. So I like it.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're trying to have this team and this unit, sort of signed up. Look, they did Zion's contract. They've got Ingram for another couple of years on contract. To sign a glue guy like Nance that does all the little things, that plays defense, solid, smart player, good teammate. I think it's a good signing for them. I think it's you're just trying to just keep everybody together the best you can. I think it's a solid signing.
Agree. That's about it with the extensions. Not a whole lot more than that. Blake Griffin signed a 1-year deal to go to the Boston Celtics, so they needed to do that with Gallo out. I think a little bit of a different player than Gallo, obviously, but a kind of a stretch 4 these days. Blake is streaky from 3 still, but just brings him a veteran presence and a good live body at the minimum. I think that's a pretty good deal, Pro. I don't think they're going to get much better than that with that last roster spot.
Yeah, it was a little strange though, Bogues. I thought they would get a more defensive-minded guy, but maybe take a chance on Whiteside. But maybe they just trust Griffin and the fact that he's just sort of solid. He knows who he is. He's just going to bang you. He's going to be that tough guy. He's not really going to be a good defender, but he's going to he throws his body around. He's tough. He's a rugged guy.
Well, he's not a huge rim presence or great defender, but he's actually a pretty good charge taker. He does. Last season, he did a pretty good job of taking some charges in the paint with guys coming in there. So I think that's, they can use a little bit of that. They don't really have any bigs that do that. That's more Marcus Smart. He's really good taking charges, offensive fouls and whatnot. But I think he'll provide a 5-10 minute a night spark for him at times. And I think, like I said, who else you get? I mean, the other guy out there was Carmelo.
Aldridge.
Yeah, I mean, it's at that point you're
not much.
You're flipping coins with production on all those guys. I don't think you can go too wrong on either of those names. So they've elected to move on there. The Women's World Cup finished pro. I'm not sure if you watched that. It was in Australia. Lauren Jackson making her comeback at 41 years old, which was pretty interesting. And for all the assholes out there that are hitting me up, telling me that, why can't you come back? Not gonna happen. I'm happy to be able to get out of bed, but it was great. I mean, we don't need to discuss the whole campage issues with what it's done to the Opals the last probably 3 or 4 years, if not more, culturally and all that kind of stuff. So I think bringing Lauren in, just to steady the ship there culturally. She didn't play a lot in the early games. I thought she probably could have played a little bit more, but obviously not moving as well as she once did when she was younger, but just provided such a good presence for them on the bench. You can tell she's done a lot of work with them and their culture, and getting back to, the Opals Pro were always the pinnacle of professionalism, and it was leave your bullshit at the door, like the legit pinnacle, not just signs in the practice facility or, let a team together, 1, 2, 3. It was legit. Like they left their nonsense at the door and they always come together. They lost that probably the last 5 years, I think. And now, bringing Lauren in at 41, some people scratch their heads, but some people were like, that there's more to this than just on court, and it worked. They got bronze. They go down to China in a semi by a basket. Turnover late cost them. I saw the last quarter of that. I watched a bit of these games because I was in Australia and it was a time friendly for me. And Lauren ends up scoring 30 in the bronze medal game versus Canada in a big blowout. So finished in a fairy tale. Now, does she retire? They're saying, she's saying most likely, but Paris is around the corner, pro. So I don't know if you can get there at 43, but it will be interesting. I think, I mean, maybe you hire as an assistant coach or a player assistant coach if there's ever been one, because she obviously provided a really good, just some stability and just some calm amongst that group. You could clearly see it, and good on them. USA went on to play China in the final, and obviously USA got that done pretty easily. A few of the WNBA girls came over after their championship there in Vegas. I think a few of them came pretty hungover, and they still managed to get the tournament done, pro. So I don't know if you caught any of those games, but it was a pretty interesting tournament. Yeah,
I mean, anytime you have Olympic competition, it's always great, to see. I know a lot of the WNBA players that will play deep in the WNBA. You have to go, had to go right over there, and like you said, it's always good. I didn't catch any of the games. I've heard it on Twitter and things like that. But somebody informed me about the China win against Australia, and but then obviously USA, that wasn't a shock. But I thought Australia would meet them in the final. Hey, you know how that is in Olympic competition. You never know. But I mean, it's always great. It's always good to have a competitive FIBA Olympic competition. It's great to see.
And really good turnout from fans for women's basketball, which is great. The games were at Kudos Arena, the home of the Sydney Kings. It's a very, very big arena, so it can look very, very empty at times if it's just half full. And they did a really good job, all the fans in Sydney and from around the world. I know a lot of Chinese fans showed up to that China-Australia game and the final. I think they had 11,000 at one game, which is sensational. So we'd love to see basketball in any capacity being supported outside of all the other sports that get support for women in Australia, at least with AFLW and NRLW. I feel like they get the bulk of the funding and the promo to see basketball get 11,000. Very well done. All right, pro, crack open a beer. I'm going to do my never too late NBL preview. So, I mean, the only thing you can probably add to this is
comedy.
Which arena has the best hot dogs, and which imports you have run across. So if you feel like you want to chime in about an import, feel free, but
sure.
Never too late, because we've had round one. There's another game tonight, and it's kind of given me a little bit. I haven't changed my picks, so I've kept them the same. But my top six, it's gone to top six now, pro. They've gone to the playing format at 6 out of 10. My top 6 will be Melbourne United. This is in no particular order. Melbourne United, Sydney Kings, Perth Wildcats, Adelaide 36ers, Brisbane Bullets, Southeast Melbourne. Now, I've etched Tasmania in my bottom 4, and I'll live to regret it. Last season, I infamously picked them last, and they made the grand final. So I'll get into them a little bit later, but my bottom 4, New Zealand, Tasmania, Illawarra, and Cairns. Let me start with Melbourne. They're once again doubted by many, but I think they'll be in the mix. They rarely beat themselves through the course of the season. They start to figure things out. I think Dean Pickerman's a very good coach. They didn't look great in the first game against New Zealand, but it was the first game of the season. Huck Porty doing his Achilles we spoke about last season is a massive out for them. I think it puts a lot more pressure on Isaac Humphries, who has some NBA experience. He's going to be asked to carry the load a whole lot more. Peatling right now is hurt, so he's not playing a lot. Their starting lineup as of their first game was, do you know Rajon Tucker, pro?
I know him a little bit. Yeah, I know the name pretty, a little bit, but I don't know him all that well.
So he's very athletic, very football type body. He's kind of their star import. He actually played with Adams, who was our import last season. Very, very good player. He's their starting point. Not too much of a distributor, it seemed like. I think he was more of a scoring type guard. You got Chris Goulding, who obviously is Chris Goulding. I think Goulding. I always get that wrong. Chris Goulding was their main scoring burst last game, and he's gonna be their main Australian player. He had 24 in the first game. Rathan Mays was really good for him. He was a guy that was with the Illawarra Hawks as a 6-man last season. They've put him in a starting lineup, which has been interesting. I thought he would still come off the bench, but he had a huge game for him. He hit two big threes late, scored 34 for him. They have another import called Jordan Caroline, by the name of Jordan Caroline. I'm not sure if you know him. Stretch 4, didn't make a 3, which isn't good. He was 0 for 4, looked kind of out of sorts a little bit. Hopefully he can settle for him because he's going to be very important to their spacing. Isaac Humphries was solid with 8 and 6. But I think for United, the thing for them is going to be their bench. David Barlow retired and then unretired 14 days later, I think it was. He was their main scoring threat for a guy that was supposed to be retired. He was 9 points, 3 rebounds, was kind of their most efficient off the bench. Beyond that, they really didn't have a whole lot. I mean, a bunch of donuts there. Okwera had 6 and Lockie Barker had 3. So I think their bench is, over the course of the season, if they have an injury or two, I'd be a little bit worried about United. But as I said, I think they'll still be somewhere in the mix, pro. They're just one of those teams that just continues to get it done. And I think they go as far as Tucker takes them. I think he's going to be, I think Goulding's going to fire at times. Rathan Mays can get his buckets, but Tucker's got to be that punch that they need. Their defense will be top 3 or 4, I think, still. They're pretty solid defensively for the most part, with their imports and whatnot. But we'll be interested in watch them. Pro, anything on good old Melbourne United?
I think you covered it, Bogues. I think you covered it. I like Goulding. We had Goulding in Dallas for Summer League a few years back. Great dude, man. Just, could really shoot it, works really hard. The Tucker kid was a journeyman NBA for a couple of years, but, I think he'll provide some slashing and, some athleticism. I don't know the Caroline kid that well, but, it'll be interesting, interesting to see where they finish up.
It will. They'll be in the mix. They'll be in the 6th, I believe. I don't see them falling out. All right, Sydney Kings. We signed starting port Walton Jr. was huge in our first game. Simon as well, great role playing defending wing, was real big for us in our first game. We've got a good mix of shooting and physicality at the big spots. We've got a couple of bigs that are rollers, a couple that are poppers, which is good. I think Xavier Cooks has a legitimate chance to be the MVP of the league if he continues on his form from last season in the finals. He was finals MVP. He went over to New Zealand in the off-season, won the MVP of the league there. Coming back here, he's in really, really good form. Big factor for how far we go. I think, for the Sydney Kings, obviously being an owner and being a little bit biased, I'm going to try to assess the Kings roster as it is. I think DJ Vasiljevic is the X factor for us. And when he fires and he can knock down some tough shots for us when our offense dries up from time to time, we have chances to win games. And we saw that in the first game against Illawarra. We were down, I think we were down 6 or 7, and he hit 3 threes in a row from the parking lot, bro. The first one, they fucked up and went under. They went under him on just a regular kind of split screen. He come to the top of the paint. They went under the top of the key. They went under that screen stupidly. Finds his feet on that one, knocks it down, comes down the next play, 2 steps past the center circle, launches it, nothing but net. Literally the next rebound down, we get a turnover. He runs out to the left wing and shoots one from 5 feet behind the line and nets it, and we're in the lead. And he's a big part of what we do offensively for us to, because every team has lulls. Walton Jr. can't bring it every night. He had 32 in the first game, was sensational, 8 assists, just a bucket, just can really score in different ways. But he might have a night where he's not feeling it. We need DJ to be that second string scorer for us. Xavier Cooks does a little bit of everything. And Justin Simon was really, really good for us. Just a guy that's kind of an all defensive team guy, but just all over the park, all over the court offensively. He's in the dunker. He's offensive rebounding. Not a great shooter from 3, but makes up for that with just his movement. It's actually a great guy to watch for kids that play the wing that aren't knockdown 3-point shooters. He can shoot one every now and then, but that's not his strength. Watch him play and see what he does and how active he is to kind of compensate the fact that he can't make threes consistently. He does a fantastic job, and obviously defensively he brings a lot. So I think that the bench as well for the Kings is decent. Geordie Hunter's had a great NBL 1 off-season. He's coming off the bench and providing a spark there, some physicality. Sean Bruce, championship point guard for us, coming off the bench. McCoy, who I thought we got kind of a steal with late into free agency, just a kind of a long athletic point guard, a little bit different than what we've had, can get in the paint, really push the tempo. And Kawat Noi, obviously, we're trying to get him back to the form that had him on NBA draft, mock drafts at one point 3 or 4 years ago. So that's kind of the Sydney Kings. Look, I think there's a lot of unknowns still about rotations and whatnot early in the season, but for a first outing, we got a little bit lucky. We didn't play the best basketball down in Illawarra, but we got that win, and that's kind of where we're at, Pro. You know a little bit about Walton Jr., wouldn't you?
Walton Jr. a little bit. I knew Cooks pretty well for the draft stuff a few years back. I think he played at Winthrop, but he was an athletic kid that was really active and could do, like you said, could do a little bit of everything. Simon was a kid, he actually went to prep school, played for a friend of mine in New Hampshire, and I think at Brewster Academy, and then he went to Arizona and then finished up at St. John's. I like him, can't really shoot, but he plays hard, slashes. Walton, I've heard his name, seen him a little bit, but don't know as much about him. But now it's a good mix of players. Like you said, just got to get rotations down. How many players did Sydney lose, Bogues, from the championship team? Did they lose many guys in the rotation or no?
Well, yeah, all 3 imports. All 3 imports were lost. So Jarrell Martin, Adams, and Ian Clark all gone. And look, that's what happens when you win a championship in any league in the world. We had a bunch of EuroLeague teams came knocking, and I think Adams went to China, and you can't afford to match a $1 million salary. It's just the reality of it for us. We'd love to, but it would be $1.5 million over the cap if we were trying to keep those guys. And we got some of those at a steal when we got them as well, like under market. Ian Clark, obviously, we got real lucky with RJ Hunter getting hurt, and he didn't have a contract in the NBA mid-season, and he came over, right? So he came over for a reasonable amount that we could afford, and that's a tricky part. But you take the championship and then you try to rebuild. But I think Walton Jr. has been a really good replacement for Adams. I think different styles of play, but I mean to open the night in league, opening night 32-8, low turnover game for him, and just got us buckets when we needed to. And I think our Australian contingent, we've kept Xavier Cooks re-signed, DJ re-signed, Sean Bruce is back, and so yeah, pretty much 60% of the roster's turned over. So that's what happens when you win games, Pro, and win championships.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, once you win, especially, like you said, you win and guys play well, those EuroLeague and big walleted Chinese clubs that, with the China League, and the CBA is going to come knocking, to lose in free agency. I didn't pay attention to the roster. That's why I asked. But yeah, it'll be interesting. The international teams, it's tough, man. Because there's a lot of turnover on most of the teams. Even in the big European leagues, unless you're like Barcelona or Real Madrid, where you still have some turnover. But a lot of these, I'd say 90% of the other teams have multiple players in rotation that you have to replace on a year-to-year basis. It gets quite interesting with the coach, having to readjust lineups and, have to flip-flop with like 3 to 5 to 6 different players on the roster. So it's always interesting, that part of it.
Well, for us, for the NBL, it's very, very important to try and keep your homegrown talent. So Xavier Cooks to Dejan Vasiljevic, I think keeping those guys is very important because they're harder to replace, right? You can replace imports. I mean, imports are generally, hired guns, right? You can always find a hired gun for the most part. Much harder to find a marquee like a Xavier Cook. So, he was a free agent and we had to overpay to keep him. Let's be honest. He demanded a good salary based on his performance and bringing Sydney a championship. So we opened the checkbook. That's just the reality of the beast you got to deal with. But the key, I think, for most NBL teams is those Australians and those marquee guys. If you can get those right, I think you can kind of surround imports around that. So that was kind of our plan. Adelaide Pro, they are once again by some championship favourites when you look at their roster, as they were last season too, and they didn't even make the 4. There is a top 6 now, so I have them in. Still not completely sold. I think they still need to prove to me that they can put it together. They have a very, very stacked roster, probably the most stacked roster in the NBL. So I think this is, I wouldn't say championship or bust, but they need to be in the mix or bust. They've opened their wallets. CJ Bruden is, first-time NBL head coach. Is his second season. Still, there's some doubts out about him, which way he goes. I know CJ very well, but there's people asking questions. Can he get this roster to the next level? There's no excuses now. I think he's a pretty smart guy when it comes to basketball and knows the game well, but the pressure's on. He's got to show that he can get this team to the next level. Kai Soto's there. Can he make another jump? He wasn't hugely influential in their games last season, but was decent. But I think he'll take another step. He's gotten in the weight room, from what I've heard, gotten a little bit bigger. But it's their import trio, Pro, that they've spent their money on. Robert Franks, Antonius Cleveland, and who's the other one? Randall. So Craig Randall. They've spent a lot of money on those 3 to mix in with Mitch McCarron, who's on a pretty good salary as well, who's more of a kind of an intangibles guy. He's not a scoring guard by any means, but he's a 10, 8, and 5. He's a Rajon Rondo of the NBL, in my opinion, one of those guys. But their imports are what they've spent money on. Now, beyond that, their bench, Sunday Detch is a very, very good role player, can be a starter, can be a bench player. Kai Soto's on the bench, Kyron Galloway. Beyond that, they don't have a lot on the bench. So, their rotation they're 7 to 8 deep, in my opinion. And like I said, a lot of people have them as championship favourites. I'm not sold on that yet, but they are in my top 6, bro.
Yeah, Soto, like I said, I spent a couple of summers with him at Nike China camp. Just never a huge fan. A lot of talent, a lot of skill. Just not a player that I would really think that he could carry it. But, as players progress in their age, maybe they get a little bit better. I spent some time in Dallas with Cleveland. He's an unbelievable athlete, good slasher, decent size for a wing player, great length. It's just his perimeter shooting that's inconsistent. He's probably on his best of days, a 30%, 3-point shooter. And that's going to be tough. That's going to be tough, to stretch his spacing so important in the game. But he does play hard. He does slash. He can get to the basket. Wasn't he the guy that almost fought? What's his name? Our guy wanted to fight. Yeah.
Cleveland. Yeah, it was. Yep. And he's an all-league defender. He was Defensive Player of the Year, I believe. And he's that's why they've signed him. I'm not going to lie, we had a look at him, but it didn't work out for us. He got a boatload more money from Adelaide, because congratulations to him. But yeah, he has some fire and passion. You like that, and he's the one that good old Scott Roth and him almost had a little tussle. I think they mended their differences in the preseason, because I think they walked past each other in a handshake line and they said something to each other. So it looked like they had a little laugh, which is kind of always good to see. But they are up there for a lot of people, so it'll be interesting to see whether Adelaide's kind of payroll, compares well with wins and losses in the season. But pressure's on CJ. He's got to get those wins, so let's hope he does. And they're back up to the top, because they were a very successful franchise in the 90s and early 2000s. Brisbane Bullets. I have Brisbane in my 6 just solely because I think their trio of Aaron Baines, Nathan Sobey, and Tyler Johnson, former NBA player. That trio should be enough to get him in the top 6. There are a lot of question marks. I was lucky enough to watch them play last night. They did not look good last night, but they did play in Perth, a very tough place to win. They didn't look like they were. They started off on a 9-0 run and then lost the game by 10 or 15 and never really looked in the game beyond that run. Few questions. Baines has an NBA out. Does he get a call up? I guess that's a question you can answer shortly. I think potentially he does get a call up if he's in shape by January, if he's moving well, if he's putting up numbers, maybe. But I think it's more realistic that if he does get a call up, it'll be post-trade deadline / buyout market time, which is March, which actually works well because the NBL season should have ended by then. So I think he stays this season. For all the people wondering whether he'll leave mid-season, I don't see it. The other thing is for Baines is the foul trouble adjustment. Big body guys, it is what it is. Referees have to adjust to the way big guys play, and you cannot be as physical in the FIBA game at times. And I think the referees sometimes just are not used to refereeing someone the size of Aaron Baines. So there'll be an adjustment there. Will Johnson settle into Australia? Looks like he's settled in okay, but hasn't set the world on fire. His last game was okay. The other thing is Nathan Sobey. Will he be okay playing off the ball at times? I mean, he's a guy. He's a point, but he's a ball in hands point. He likes to facilitate, score, likes it all to go through him, and that's when he's at his best. When he's just in the flow of everything going through him. And now you've got Tyler Johnson. Baines is going to demand some post touches and some three point shots out of sets. So there's a lot of question marks. I think they're going to be wildly inconsistent, in my opinion. I think they're going to look really good for stretches, and they're going to look really bad for stretches. And I think their first game they didn't look very good, but then we play them this Friday in Sydney. I'll be going down to that, and it's the championship unveiling for our banner and our rings and all that fun stuff. But I'm worried about that game. I think they're going to have their tail between their legs after a tough loss. So I think they have the talent. Their bench, a little bit of question marks there, but. Yeah, and look, their head coach is a former assistant of the Sydney Kings, James Duncan. He's got a somewhat stacked roster now, and I think the pressure's on him as well. I think if they don't make the 6, which I think they will, whether he likes it or not, they're probably going to put the blame on the coach because that's the way this business works. So I hope for his sake, he's a fantastic guy that they get to make the top 6. They're in my 6 at the moment, and we'll see how they go, Pro. What's your thoughts on Aaron Baines and potentially making an NBA comeback?
I mean, I think that people are going to be probably watching, in hopes that maybe in January they might think of something, maybe a better team, either a better team that just needs that extra insurance or that young team that might need a vet. I'm not sure, especially with that position, Bogues, being devalued like it is in the NBA. It's going to be tough to say. I like him. He's tough. He knows how to play. He's smart. But you never know what's going through NBA guys' minds. Tyler Johnson, I'll tell you what, folks, that's one of the biggest money heists in the history of mankind. Remember, I think it was Brooklyn who signed him to that offer sheet, and then Miami matched, where he got like $38 million over 2 years or something like that. That was insane. It was insane. $38 million. But yeah, I mean, I think he'll be an okay player for them. I don't know if they have enough talent to win and get high up and, go deep. If Baines could stay healthy and play hard and Johnson could be consistent. That's one thing about Johnson, though. And at least throughout his NBA career, he's so up and down, with things that'll be interesting to see. Do you know much about this Walker kid or no?
A little bit, yeah. He was solid for him last night. Their other import, just a solid defender for him. Got in the paint a little bit, but nothing. I mean, look, between Tyler, Sobey, and Baines, there's not going to be a whole lot of ball left for that third, fourth import, right? So they got to figure out how to get their touches and get their buckets. But nothing. He had 16 last night. He knocked down some hoisted up 9 threes, made 4 of them. Solid. Seems like he's their go-to defender. He guarded Cotton for a lot of the night. But I think they're still figuring out things in Brisbane. And Sobey, look, to be fair, Sobey didn't have a great game. He only scored 3 points, but he's on a minute limit at the moment and coming back off an injury in the preseason. So they're not completely healthy, but I think they're going to shuffle around that roster a little bit in the rotations. I mean, he went 11 players deep. I don't think that's sustainable long term. I think he's going to tighten that up a little bit and figure out, who's not going to be in the lineup. But, most of their guys, no one hit 30 minutes for him, which was interesting.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Will be. All right, Southeast Melbourne, they're my last team to make the cut. I had them and Tasmania as kind of a coin flip, in my opinion. I think Tasmania will steal some wins in Tassie, but I think, look, Southeast Melbourne, I think they're solid, but I'm not sold on them being the Southeast Melbourne of the past few years. I just don't think that they are as deep and talented, and I think, potentially the burnout of just having that same kind of squad together for a while now, just I don't know if it gets it done long term. Mitch Creek is going to be their guy still. As far as he goes, they take him. He had 23 in their first game, which was a win against Tasmania, the other team that I thought would possibly be in the mix but didn't. Alan Williams is over there, import from the US. Cole Adnam had a really good first game with 30 ball in his first game of the season, which is good. Okay, balanced roster. I think they'll be in the mix. They've got a few injuries at the moment. But you could some people have them out. I can understand that. To me, it's out of them and Tasmania. But Creek's an all league player. I think he'll get him some wins, 4 or 5 wins off his own bat, and they're going to need nights like that from Kyle Adnam to continue to get some wins on the board, pro. So not too much there for you, I don't think. The only other. The other team I've got, Tasmania. They're the first team I've got out. They're in my bottom 4. Like I said, take that with a grain of salt, people. Don't put money on it, because I had them last season and they finished second. So I love what Scott Ross doing. I love what he's about. He's a hard on his sleeve guy. Smokes about 50 cigars a day, but that's okay. But he's really embraced and embodied what Tasmania is all about. They love him down there. I just don't think their roster's deep enough. I said somewhat a similar thing last season, but their roster looks even thinner this season. They brought Majet back. McVeigh's still there, Krislovic, but I don't think they're deep enough over the course of a season. Rashad Kelly was decent for him. He had some big buckets off the bench, so I anticipate he'll start in the next couple of games, but I just don't think their roster's deep enough to compete over the course of a season. That's Tassie. Cairns, I just can't see them competing for a top spot. I think they're on a bit of a budget there in Cairns. Their import DJ Hogg. Do you know much about him?
Absolutely not. Absolutely, got a great name, but absolutely not.
I'll tell you what. Well, yeah, he embodies the name because he hoists them up. He's shooting the ball. So he's going to be a fun import to watch. I think he has every ability to have a few 30, 40 balls. I think so. He can get him up. Ben A. Could be a shining light off the bench for them after his last few weeks of the previous season. Just a kind of a role player, club guy that's always been around the team. Got an opportunity late last season because they were out of the playoffs. Played late in the season. Played really well. He'll have an opportunity to get some more minutes, but I don't really think Cairns is going to make too much noise. I think they're still a bottom 4 team in my opinion. Illawarra, this is a tough one. A lot of people have them in the top 6. I don't. I think the post-Brian Goorjian era will not be pretty there. The budget has been significantly lessened compared to the previous 2 years. Brian Goorjian with his coaching prowess and his ability, also has a very good strong arm to get to ownership and demand them to spend money. It does a fantastic job of that, and he did that the last 2 seasons, and they were in the mix both years. Grand final one year and then semis the next year. That budget's been severely tightened, bro. They promoted the assistant to head coach, and I just don't think that new head coach has that kind of pull to go into one of those meetings and be like, I know you guys just signed me as your new head coach, but I need a bigger budget. So I don't think he has that ability just yet. Tyler Harvey's still there. He's their bucket. They're going to go as far as he takes them. I just think they've got a depth issue as well in their roster. I don't love their bench. They lost Bradley Mays to Melbourne. He was their kind of score and punch off the bench. Look, they probably should have beaten us, to be honest. The Hawks should have beaten the Kings on the weekend. It took 3 threes in a row from DJ for us to steady the ship and get back into it. But yeah, I'm looking for who that shining light is for them off the bench. A kind of a role player. Lockie Dent was huge for them. Small little point guard, local kid, I believe. He was 7 for 7 off the bench, 5 for 5 from 3. Really nice game for him, for a guy that no one probably had on the scouting report. So congratulations to him. But I just think their bench is going to be a bit of an issue down there. They have another import by the name of Justin Robinson. Don't know if you know him. Didn't make a whole lot offensively, 5 for 20, but 8 assists and 0 turnovers. So he seems like a pretty good playmaker. Look, Tyler Harvey's not a playmaker for others. He's going to get a bucket for himself. So it's a good balance to have there. They're expecting a lot from Froling and Deng in the starting lineup, but I just don't think their depth is deep enough to get there.
Did we mention our boy Prokhorov for Melbourne?
He's hurt at the moment, I believe.
Oh, he is. Okay. I'm trying to sponsor a one-on-one at All-Star, one-on-one with him and Josh Majetti, and the loser has to go either to Starbucks or work at an accounting firm. That's what I want to set up. But I love my guy Prokhorov, man. So I want to make sure that people know that he's alive and well.
Well, he'll be back. I'm not sure what the extent of his injury is, but he'll be back soon. And he obviously had a down year last season, up and down with injuries and whatnot. But it will be interesting to see when he's back, because he'll definitely fill a void that they need for some outside shooting. Last team I have are the New Zealand Breakers. Finally have some home games, pro. So they were infamously based in Australia the last 2 years with COVID. They didn't have any home games, which is nice for them to finally get people back in their building. I caught their game against Melbourne United. Now, they were better than I thought, to be honest with you. I have them in my bottom 4, but would not surprise me if they're sneaking in. First-time head coach Modi Mao has his work cut out for him, but a passionate guy. They got an older roster. They could bring, a bit of consistency. Their imports are somewhat decent, but look, I think they're better than I had them at this point. I don't know if it was a factor of Melbourne not being as good, or New Zealand, or I didn't give New Zealand enough credit, but they battled, man. They got some decent imports. Derek Pardon, know much about him, pro?
Yeah, I've seen him a little bit. He's a guy that, I think he went to, where did he go? Like Northwestern. He's not bad. He's like 6'8", decent player. Doesn't do anything great, but he's a decent body. Doesn't really shoot it, but he's big. He could put the ball on the floor a little bit. I don't think he's a great perimeter threat, to stretch, but he's not a bad player. He's got good size. He was decent in the Big Ten when he played in college.
Yeah, well, 23 and 12 in his first game. Like you said, no threes shot, but 8 for 10 from the field, 7 for 10 from the line. He was definitely solid for him. A lot of offensive rebounds. The other guy they got, Barry Brown Jr., another import. He was pretty good for him as well. Did shoot a lot, 10 for 27 from the field, but finished with 23 points, 5 assists. So their import tandem looks decent. Will McDowell-White was very, very good. In my opinion, he had 9 points, 13 rebounds, 7 assists from the guard spot. So he was solid for them. Their bench, somewhat decent. A few decent role players in Vodanovic, and they got an ex-star in Rupert. So I think they'll be okay. I think they'll be competitive. But for the most part, I think they're going to be down in that in that bottom four, unfortunately, as they rebuild there down in New Zealand, Pro. So that is the Never Too Late NBL wrap. I know a few of you are asking us. I didn't have time to get on a special NBL expert to debate it with me, so I just thought I'd knock it out in this podcast and you get the expert commentary of Pro from afar.
I don't know about how fucking expert it was, but we'll go for it.
Said heavily sarcastic.
On the sheet that, no doubt. And you did steal my fucking. I was gonna throw another, useful, useless with the Denver deal, but I guess you stole it from me. I was gonna try to surprise the group again, but I'm gonna stay silent on the useful, useless stat hump for this week.
Okay. Well, we've got a few good ones, but let's do Dabble real quick. Dabble is betting meets social media. On Dabble, you can follow your friends, mates, stalk the experts, trending tipsters, scroll through trending bets. You can copy them to your account in one tap. Get alerts when your mates and expert tipsters place bets. And most importantly, you can follow me, Andrew Bogut, all on one word. Go on and download the app to the App Store. Dabble, all one word. Dabble socially, gamble responsibly, have fun, having a punt. Useful or useless, Pro? The Warriors-Lakers game on October 18, opening night, is the second most expensive regular season NBA game of all time, Pro. All time. Average purchase price in that building is $897. Now, who do you think the most expensive game was?
I would say maybe MJ. MJ's last game, but nobody knew when he was going to retire. So I would say Kobe probably in his final game.
Correct. Kobe's last game in 2016 had an average of $1,137. Useful or useless, Pro?
Is the game at Golden State?
I believe so. I have to check that actually.
Yeah. They lost so much fucking money with building that place. They probably need the fucking ticket revenue with all the shit they got in that building, but I would say it's useful because, second of all time in a game. I don't think it's a great fucking game to watch a championship contender versus a play-in team, but it's not bad.
Play-in, you've got the Lakers at the play-in already.
Oh yeah, for sure, play-in. Yeah, but
it is in Golden State, by the way. It's in San Francisco.
Yeah, I would say it's useful. Why not? $900 a fucking game. Trust me, I'd rather pay my $99 for my fucking league pass and just watch it from fucking home.
Oh, that went down, didn't it? We got a discount.
Yeah, I saw that. It's originally like $200. Now it's down to I think it's down to like 99. Or for you guys, it's down to what? Was it down to like 120?
Yeah, that's the Australian dollar. Yeah,
yeah, it's crazy.
It's definitely down.
Yeah.
Down a shitload. But also, the purchase price being $897, that could be the Biden tax, Pro, as well. So you got to factor that inflation number in over there. You guys are struggling. So
and plus, don't get me wrong. You're in San Francisco, there's a 98% chance of your fucking car being burglarized. So that's an extra $250 to $500 onto your tab. So now you're probably walking out of there with $1,500.
Your insurance policy goes up when you park a car in San Fran and you got to jump over all the feces on the street. So love you Warrior fans. Don't get too mad, but there are places in that city that are not too good. All right, Pro, next one. Highest paid mascot in the NBA, Pro. Who's your pick?
Fuck, I love Benny the Bull. I would definitely pick Benny the Bull. When I read this, I had it. I screenshotted it. I'm like, there's no fucking chance Bogues is going to find this one. I got to get this one in. I couldn't believe when I read this stuff. But
did you have that one on your list, did you?
That was the one, the Denver deal. That's what I said. I found it today. I'm like, I screenshot it. I'm like, I'm going to get fucking Bogues with this one. This is amazing. Actually, a couple of things amazed me in this, but go ahead. I would say my favorite by far is Benny the Bull. It's not even close in Chicago.
I like the gorilla. I like the Phoenix Sun gorilla. He's always been good. But Rocky, the Denver Nugget mascot, Pro. Mm-hmm. Now you've seen the number, but what would you expect the mascot to make not knowing that number, Pro? Like, what would be a good annual salary for a mascot? So 41 games. So you got to factor in 41 games, plus they're doing a shitload of promo stuff. Yeah. They go on to team appearances. So they're probably working 150 odd days a year.
When I was in Boston, And like I always thought like fucking mascots making like $100 a game, something like that. Because of course I didn't know anything. So when they told me there was at that point in 2003 or 2004, there was a mascot union and they were getting an average.
No, there wasn't.
Yes.
Are you fucking serious?
I shit you not. And like our guy was making like $100,000. And he was, I couldn't fucking believe it. Like, jumping off trampolines and shit. Who gives a fuck, right? But that guy was making like 100. So they were saying, yeah, that's sort of like the going rate, 80 to 100. So like, I figure with, that was what, 18 years ago. So guys are probably making, mascots are probably making an average of like 125. So when they were saying, okay, Denver mascot was the highest in the league, I'm like, okay, maybe 175. When I read this, I almost shit a fucking brick when I found out what this guy
Did you want to put on some sort of mascot suit and start training, bro?
Well, I'm the mascot of this fucking show. I think I could make at least a third of this. This is crazy. But go ahead, this is your show.
So the number for everyone for Rocky the mascot. So if you've got dreams about making the NBA and you can't be a player, this might be a calling card for a lot of people. $625,000, bro.
Unfucking real.
I couldn't believe it. Well, that's almost as much as the league minimum,
dude. And they got one of the cheapest owners in pro sports. Oh, I would say cheap. I would say frugal, not overspending for staff. I could not believe it when they said this guy makes $625,000. Nuts.
How do they base that? Well, I mean, does he have an agent, you think?
Oh, for sure.
Rocky?
There's no doubt about it. Rocky's got an agent. I think the same, Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse might have the same agent, but like this guy, 620.
He's probably with Clutch. He's probably with Clutch or CIA,
no doubt
bro.
about it. 625. But you know what? It's crazy, Bogues, right? So when I was in Dallas, I don't think you were with us. We played Chicago at, I think, the University of Nebraska, I think it was Nebraska. So we go pregame to work out, and like Benny the Bull is like working on his like half court sky hook or whatever, right? And then he's about to take his mask off. I don't know why he was taking his mask off, but everybody was forced to drop their phone and fucking, you would think this is like Batman to see he's not fucking Bruce Wayne. We had to turn our backs and the guy had to take his fucking mask off. I'll tell you what, these mascots are a little bit fucked up, to be honest. But like no one could see the identity of fucking like Benny the Bull. But yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. But 625.
That's a lot of money, man.
It's a lot of money.
625. I saw it. I thought it was false, and I'm just like, what the hell,
dude?
It's a lot of money to be a mascot. But hey, good luck to him. I'm not hating on it by any means. I just thought it was funny, so I thought I'd bring it up. And it's funny that you saw it as well because it's definitely. I'm saying it's useful, very useful to know that hey, if you've got a dream about being a mascot, you can you can eat caviar and dress in funny suits as well.
But you know what, like. What did shock me a little bit by reading that blurb, and hopefully we didn't get catfished again by a fucking account that we love to do all.
Probably.
Yeah, but like they said the average salary is down to like 60,000. Like I said, 20 years ago they were telling me, now maybe I got bad intel, but they were telling me like the average mascot was making about $100,000 a year. And
well, there'll be some teams that definitely pay per game, probably, and there'd be some teams that have it on full-time salary. But shit, if you saying the average today is $60K?
I think in that, hold on, let me just give me 2 seconds, Bogues. Where's my phone? Hold on.
Wow, Rocky would be hated. Rocky would be hated if that's the truth, man.
So Denver Nuggets mascot Rocky is the highest paid mascot, $625. Rocky makes 10 times the average salary of an NBA mascot, roughly $60K a year. Hey, what if he like leaves like tomorrow he's leaving practice and all 29 other fucking mascots fly to Denver and they beat the shit out of him with like explosive confetti fucking hammers and fucking like all that bullshit. And they beat the living fuck out of him. Imagine, I thought they were making like 100, but they say he makes 10 times the average.
I don't know, man. He's got to be hated.
Insane.
There's that motherfucker.
Yeah, there's that motherfucker right there. Get him. It's like the gorillas fucking like shooting him out of a cannon and shit like that. It's unbelievable.
But hey, man, maybe the analytics on Rocky are great. He's the best analytics. He's got the best analytics for a mascot, man. That's probably what it is today. There's someone somewhere in an NBA office saying this is the guy we're going to pay. His analytics are off the charts. He does X amount of flips per hour. He's unbelievable. But, good stuff. What do you got?
Well, we're talking about Aiden Bogues. Obviously, a lot of talk about that. Phoenix wasn't going to sign him, but the only reason why they matched Indiana's max offer sheet was because they didn't want to lose him for nothing. So, fact or fake news: Aiden will be. Now everyone's thinking he's going to get traded. December 15th comes up. He's traded, within the next week of that. But the fact or fake news for this week, that Aiden will be on their roster by after trade deadline of this upcoming season. Fact or fake news? Fact.
I don't think they're moving him that quickly just based on that's going to be a lot of anger to hold on to till the trade deadline, or even till December 15, right? It's still 3 months away or 2 months away. So yeah, look, it's not an ideal situation. I still think the Suns will be a good regular season team. I still think they'll be up in the mix with their roster. I think they're still a very deep, talented roster, and I think that hopefully should calm him down a little bit. And it's like, where are you going to go? Like, there's not a lot of teams that can acquire that cap space easily without giving up a very good player in return. But what big are you replacing? Even if you're Phoenix, you want to try to make this work. There's not many other bigs out there that you can replace for that system, right? Chris Paul ball dominant guy. As far as setting the offense up, you've got a scorer on the wing in Booker. You've got Bridges coming into his own. You've got Cam Johnson. So, if you bring in a scoring type big, hypothetical, you somehow manage to get a Karl Anthony Towns, not going to happen. But, like a guy like that, it's like, I don't think they fit as well in that system. Aiden's a perfect big for that system because he's not a poster man. He's not the man in post-ups and touches. Maybe that's the issue he wants to leave. That's it. Who knows? But he's not he fits in well. He can roll and shoot hooks on both shoulders. He's athletic enough to catch a lob. I think he fits in well with that group. So, in saying that long spiel, I think he'll be there past deadline. So, say fact on that one, bro.
Yeah, Bogues, I think at some point they're going to get past this. It's going to take some time, but I think they're going to get past it. And like you said, there's not a lot of teams that could not only take on that salary, right, but give you the assets in which you think that you need, paying this guy the max. I think he's a great fit for them. I think that having a center that could, protect the rim, he's really good on the block. He's a good player, really good player. And I think at some point they're going to say, look, by December, because he's healthy, he's going to play. I think they're going to be pretty good by December 15th, right? I think record-wise, I don't even know how many games they play up to that point, but I think at that point they could win 60% of their games, 65% of their games. And I think that they'll be like, you know what, fuck it, let's just go forward with them. Because, what are we going to get? What do we want if we're going to trade him? It's not like somebody's going to give us, well, if Utah got 5 picks for Gobert, like, what are you going to get for him? He's not as good as Gobert, I don't think, but he's in that category. I think it's fact he will be with the team past trade deadline. I think they're just going to figure out that, we know what we have with him. Yeah, it's a little bit rocky with him and our coach, but they'll get over it. He's a good player. We know what we have. He took us, we went pretty far with him 2 years ago. Last year was, not the greatest finish that we wanted, but I think he could take us pretty far. So I say fact. I think he'll be back past deadline. Bogues, battle of the worst. Orlando. The Magic will win more games than the Houston Rockets. Fact or fake news?
Fake news. I think Houston win more. So, yeah, simple as that. I think Houston win more based on Orlando's in the East. They're in a tougher conference. I think Houston have the ability to win some games with that roster. I don't think they're going to be consistently good, but I think they're going to surprise. They're one of those teams, I think, on paper that could beat like the Warriors one night and then lose to the worst team in the league the next night. Like they're going to be that erratic because they're somewhat young and dumb, and I think they're in a conference that's probably a little bit easier to steal a few more wins at the bottom end of that conference than Orlando are. So I think Houston's going to win more. So fake news that one.
Yeah, I fake news it too. I'm not a big fan of Orlando's roster as of yet. I mean, look, they got Banchero, that their draft pick, the number 1 pick. But look, Markelle Fultz is out again with a toe injury. He's gone. I don't know how long he's gone for. Isaac is still. There's no timetable I've heard for his return. So those are 2 major guys in their second unit that are out. And you just don't know. I mean, I think Cole Anthony's a decent player. Still not a huge fan of his, but he's a good player. But I think Houston has a lot of young talent on their roster. And I think that they're, I mean, they're not a great team by any means, but you got, Green, Porter, Jabari Smith, Sengun's pretty good, Then you get like Josh Christopher coming off the bench, our guy Tate coming off the bench. They just got Mo Harkless, who's solid. I think that they're going to be a decent team. I think they're going to be, challenging to get out of that, 12 to. I think they could get as high as me. I haven't done my rankings or anything, but I think they could challenge for like 12. I think Orlando, is still in that, 15 slot in the East. I don't think they're getting out of there anytime soon. So I say fake news. I don't think that Orlando will win more games than Houston this year. Although they do fight. They do fight and scrap. Jamal Mosley's a good coach, but I think that Houston's got too much young talent, and they just got natural talent on their team that can't win games yet, but I think that they're a really talented young team.
Agree. One for you, Pro.
Go ahead, Bogues.
The Phoenix, fact or fake news, the Phoenix Suns championship window is closed.
Interesting. I say fake news. I think, here's my thing, Bogues. I think talent wins in this league. I think coaching is very overrated on some ends of it. I think great coaches get you a few extra wins for sure. But I think that like if you have talent, you have talent. I think this thing gets squashed. The Crowder thing's interesting, but again, I think they could replace him. I like, because Crowder's a throwback. He's one of those tough guys, those Marcus Smarts, the Morris twins. One of those tough guys that like enforcer type players. And they're going to miss them for sure. And whenever they decide whatever trade they're going to make. But I think they got talent. I think they get, I think with Booker and Ayton and, Chris Paul is getting up there in age, and I don't know how long he's going to play at a decent level, but I think he could still give them another year or so. I think they still have championship aspirations. I'm not sure if they win it, but I think that they can put themselves in position to get to a conference final. Not guaranteed, but
well, is a window closed, Pro? Aspirations are different to a window.
That's a good point.
Do you think they can still win a championship this season?
I think they could still win a championship this season. I think like when you're talking about every year, there's like 4 teams that have a chance. I think that they have a chance. And I think that they're, they've got enough talent there and they've been together. Yeah, I still say they still have a chance.
I'm going fact. I think it's closed. I think their room for error is so small in that top 4 in the West. And considering what we discussed earlier in this pod, where they're having culture, camaraderie issues already, even if it's 2 guys or 1 guy, I think that they can't afford to have that. I'm not worried about their X's and O's. I think they're going to be a good regular season team, but I think as soon as adversity hits this group, I think it's going to be guys looking for the exits, in my opinion. The pressure's just going to get to them. I think they were so close that 1 year and lost to Milwaukee, and I think I don't think they're going to get back there. I think their best case scenario is maybe a conference finals, maybe if they're lucky. But you factor in a Dallas, you factor in a Clippers, Warriors. Like they're not beating them. Period. I don't think. And I think the Crowder loss is somewhat underrated. I really do. I think he brings a lot of toughness to him. He's a no-nonsense guy. Guys don't mess with him. He can knock down that 3 ball. He's streaky, but when he's hot, and he's one of their better defenders. You don't replace that easily. And why, his stats don't jump off the page, but he's an important cog to a CP3-led team because, CP3, it's him, Booker, and maybe Aiden lead the stats, but it's those guys in between, like a la the old school Clippers, the JJ Redicks of the world, and those kind of guys, Jamal Crawford, those are the guys that get you to the next round sometimes. And I think Crowder's a big out. So I'm going fact. I think their window is closed. And on top of that, Pro, something I can add, they are down 71-59 to the Adelaide 36ers right now, Pro, at halftime. So I know it's preseason. But yeah. Now, Jock will be pissed if he loses to the 36ers with his NBA team, but they are down at the moment. The guys are playing minutes, Pro. All their starters have played 15 minutes each in the first half. Their whole starting unit played 15 minutes straight together. They might be done for the night, I'd assume, though, because they've played 15 straight, and now it looks like all the bench is playing. But yeah, go Sixers. We'll see. I hope that creates some more tension in their locker room, and I'm right about my fact or fake news, Bro.
That's a good one, Bogues. I like that. Yes,
it is. All right, that wraps up this episode. Don't forget to give us a follow, like, all that crap on social media, at Rogue Bogues on all the forums. We're even on LinkedIn, and get on Pro stuff at Hoop Consultants on you on Facebook, Pro, or just Instagram and Twitter?
I think Facebook too, yeah. I have a Facebook page for Hoop Consultants.
Beautiful. Check all that out. If you need some help with some film breakdowns for junior players or semi-pros, hit up Pro, and he can help you out with all that stuff. And we'll see you all next week.
See you guys next week.
Let's get Rogue.